Hi, this is a quick video to show you one way to draw the angle bracket 1 detail. If you started AutoCAD and you are in a brand new drawing, then you don't need to do this step. But if you need to create a new drawing, you can go to the top left corner and click on here, this sheet of paper for new. And then you're going to use the ACAD DWT template, which is the default for AutoCAD. You can pick open. And then the first thing you want to do is save the file. So you can go to the big red A and pick save, or you can use this floppy disk icon here. And then navigate to the folder that you'd like to use to save this file. And under file name, we're going to use angle bracket 1 and then your name. And pick save. Now, there are several tools at the bottom left corner in the status bar. I choose to turn off the grid display and actually everything else except for 3 icons. The 5th icon is polar tracking, which will give us our straight lines and some of our angle settings. Object snaps to snap onto existing geometric positions of an object, although we won't be using this one for this detail. I like to keep that one on. And then sometimes when I draw a detail like this one, I will use dynamic input because of the angles. So the other setting that we'd like to use is under polar tracking. Let's go ahead and rest your pointer on polar tracking and right click and pick settings. Here we want to change the polar angle measurement from absolute to relative to last segment. If we use absolute, then 0 is always to the right in the east direction, and then north is 90, and west is 180, and then south, if you're thinking of direction, would be the 270. So when we pick in front of relative to last segment, when you're drawing a line, the angles shift to an alignment relative to the last segment. And I'll show you as we draw this detail what the difference is. Let's go ahead and pick OK. And then in this detail, it shows that the limits are 240, 190. So we can type in limits and enter. And then if you look at your command line, which is at the bottom here, it says lower left corner. We're going to keep that as 0, 0. So just press enter. And then the upper right corner, in order for us to make this working area bigger than the default 12 by 9, which you'll see in your command line, we can type in 240, 190 and enter. Now, it doesn't look like anything has happened, but when you use the zoom all command, then zoom all will increase the screen size to the limits. So we're going to type in Z and enter for zoom. And then if you look at your command line, there are several nested options that you can get to by typing in the capital letter. And there's all right there, zoom all. So type in now A and enter. Now, the other way of getting to zoom commands is to go to the View tab. And there are several here ways that you can navigate through the AutoCAD screen by using here the zoom all here, which is the same thing as typing in Z, enter, and A, enter. So going back to the Home tab, also in the angle bracket parameters, we're starting A at 40, 0. So start the line command and type in 44, 0, and enter. You might be you might have to zoom up a little using your wheel of your mouse if you have one, or some of these zoom commands here. If you have a mouse that has a wheel on it, just so you know, you can roll the wheel back and forth to zoom. You can hold the wheel down to pan, or you can double click on the wheel to use the zoom extents command. Those are also in this navigation bar over here. Okay, so we started the line command and we typed in 44, 0, bringing us to this point here, which is 44 from the 00, which is at the corner of this UCS icon right here. So we're going to pull our mouse towards the right, and if you look at those boxes, the distance between A and B is 94. So we'll type in 94, but then we're going to use the tab key, not the enter key. If we use tab, it will tab over to what the angle is. And we want the angle to be 0. If I pull my mouse here around, you can see that number changes in the box. If I pull my mouse right to the right, I'm using the polar tracking, which should be blue and on. By the way, the 5th and 6th icon are blue and on, and so is that dynamic input. That should be blue, and that makes it on too. So I'm going to pull my mouse to the right here and just press enter because I'm accepting 0. Now I'm ready to create an angle that's 135 and a length between B and C of 40. So I can type in 40 for my length and press the tab key to tab over to the angle. And this is where we have to start looking at what AutoCAD is giving us. AutoCAD is giving us that 0 is still to the right, and then coming up here is giving us this angle. You can see that kind of polar tracking and all those measurements that come with dynamic input. So if we think about our calculation, it's actually 180 degrees from 0 all the way over to here, the left-hand side, 180. So if we need 135, we can take 180 and subtract 135 and know that right now for this angle we can type in 45 and enter. And now we have our line segment. For the next one, we're going to take a look at this because when we picked in front of relative to last segment, we actually were able to say that this straight line is 0. You can kind of see that where it says relative polar. It kind of shows us that 0. But it still keeps us at a 0 here in this direction. So we need to calculate now 150 from the line we just drew to this new line. If you pull your mouse back towards the line we just drew, you'll see that the angle is 135 between the line we drew and straight to the right. And we need 150. So if you think of 135, what do we need to add to that to make 150? So we need to add 15 degrees. And you can see that if I pull my mouse up in this direction, I'm really drawing from straight to the right up. So first we need to type in the length. The length between C and D is 35. Then press tab, and now we can type in the angle that we just calculated to be 15 and enter. Now we should really type in the distance first. The distance between D and E is 57, and then the tab key and not enter. We're using tab to tab over to the other calculation. If you see that we need 120, we need 120 here from this line that we just drew to the new line. And there are probably several other ways of doing this. I'm just taking the shortcut, some of the shortcut ways. that help us to visually look at this. So using relative polar, we know that 0 is coming across here straight out from the line we just drew, and that's 15 degrees from straight out to the right. 15 degrees. So if we know that it's 180 from the line we just drew straight out in this direction, 180, then the angle between this direction and the line we want to draw is 60. If we add 15 to that, we'll get an angle of 75. So the 75-degree angle is from straight out to the right up to where we need to draw the line based on this relative polar angle of 15 from straight to the right out in the direction of the previous line segment that we drew. So we can type in 75 and enter. Now we're drawing from E to F, which is 87. So we'll type in 87 and tab, and then take a look at the angle between here straight to the right and relative to the line that we just drew. We have an angle of 75. And this straight line here, based on the line we just drew, is 180 from here all the way around. We need 105. So if we take 180 and subtract 105, we'll get 75 from here to the line, and then we'll add 75 here. So the angle that we need is 150. Type in 150 and enter. Now we have between F and G, which is 61. So type in 61 and tab. And then notice here we have 30 degrees from straight to the right to the line we just drew. And what we need is 105 all the way across this way. So if we add 30 to the 150 that we need, then we'll get 135. So we can type in 135 and enter. The next line segment is from G to H. We can type in 48 for the length, tab key to tab over to the degrees. As I look at this, we have an angle of 150. So from the line we just drew to straight to the right is 45. So if we subtract the 45 from the 150, we'll get the angle that we need, which will be 105, and enter. The next line segment from H to J is 85. We'll type in 85 and tab. And now this one is simple because it's 90 degrees from here across. And because we're using relative tracking, you can see that the relative polar angle is 270. If we just pull our mouse here towards the 270, we can press enter for that angle knowing that it's 90. We need 60 between here and the next line, knowing that it's 15 from straight to the right to this one, and then another 60. We know that the angle is 75 from straight to the right to the new line that we need to draw, which is from J to K. So we can type in 53 and tab, and then 75 and enter. And now we're ready to either right click and pick close, or type in C for close, or you could just simply come back over here, use object snap and click. So I choose to right click and pick close. To verify that your angles are correct, if you go to here the annotate or annotation panel, you can drop this list down of angles to use, and instead of using linear, we're going to use angular. If we place this now, it's going to be very small, so we'll change the scale. I'm just going to go ahead and click on this line and pull my mouse up and click. Now I know that that is a very small here measurement, so because this is looking like a metric drawing, although it does say inch in the detail, we can type in D and enter to access the Dimension Style Manager. We can pick the Modify button. If we go to the Fit tab and use the overall scale of, right here underneath the preview, we should be able to type in 25.4 to increase all of the different settings of the dimensions by 25.4. Instead of here changing all of these individual settings, use the Fit tab for the overall scale to increase the entire dimension scale. We can pick OK and close, and now we have something that might work well. You can continue to place your angular dimensions by just selecting here these lines and pulling your mouse in the direction that you want to go. You can even right click and repeat the angular dimension so you don't have to go back up into the dialog box each time. Now, if you think that that number is too big, the 25.4, and you want to change it later as you're working with this detail, and we actually might end up doing that, you can always go back to type in D and enter, pick the Modify button, go to the Fit tab, and change the overall scale there. So looks like our numbers are all correct, and we're ready to draw the circles. There are advanced ways of tracking to the center of these circles, but as an introduction class, we're going to get some experience with the offset by building a line. We can draw just a simple line from clicking on this point, going here straight up. I'm going to change now my settings back. You can right click with your pointer on the polar tracking icon and pick settings, and go back to absolute and pick OK. That way I can pull my mouse straight up and just type in 24 and enter. And now I know that that is the center of the circle. I know it doesn't say that it's straight with this line, but that's what I'm going to assume that as I'm reading this drawing, it doesn't give me a measurement of where the center is in relation to A, so I'll go straight up 24. And then I'm going to create an offset, so I'll start the offset command and type in 73 and enter. Select here this line that you just drew and pick to the right. That will give you the center of the next circle. Now we need a line that's 45 degrees. We can start the line command, click here, the beginning of, click here at the end of this point. And then notice here that you can type in the length and the angle as we did before. So the length is 81, we can type in 81 and tab, and then the angle is 45 and enter. Right. This next line is 24, so we'll type in 24 and tab. And now we have a little bit of calculating to do. Or we can right click on polar settings, pick settings, and go to relative to last segment. And what that will do is show us the angle from straight to the right to the line that we just drew, which is 135. If it's 135 and we need an angle of 30 based on our angle bracket detail over here, we can take 135 and subtract here 30, giving us 105. I can type in 105 and enter. Now we're ready to draw our circles. We have a diameter of 15 here, so I'll go to circle center diameter, click here on the center, type in here 15 and enter. This one here is diameter of 17. I'll go back to circle center diameter, click here, type in 17, and then these two are a diameter of 19. So circle center diameter, click here, type in 19, and then it's up to you. You can draw it again, or you can practice with the copy command. The copy command is in the modify panel. It looks like two circles here side by side. You can select copy, select your circle, enter it, pick the base point, which is really where you want to pick up that circle right here at the center of the circle, and then pick where you want to put it right here. So 2 points, where you want to pick it up, where you want to put it, or the second point. And then right click and enter. Now we need to draw these lines from the circles, and we know based on some of the assignments that we've worked with that we can use tangent to create here this line. Now some people will get the Object Snap toolbar and use that tool. I'll show you what I use is here just to take a look at it. If you hold your shift key down and press your right mouse button, you'll be able to get this menu that has the object snaps. So I'll use my escape key to get rid of that menu. So while you're drawing, when I start the line command, I can now hold my shift key down, press my right mouse button, and pick tangent. Come over to this circle and click on that tangent, and then hold my shift key down, press my right mouse button, pick up tangent here, and click on this circle. Right click and pick enter. Another option would be to right click with your pointer on the Object Snap button, which is the sixth icon here from the left. It should be blue so that it's on. If you right click and you pick up tangent, you should be able to start the line command and get the tangent. But look, see what happens? Sometimes other object snaps are overriding those because the ones that are underneath this icon or the ones that are in Object Snap are always on and always running, all of them. So I'm going to turn that one tangent off and go back to here, starting the line command, holding your shift key down, pressing your right mouse button, picking up tangent, and you see what it does? It's an override. It's an override for just one time of clicking that's only tangent. So I can click here. You see how it goes back to all the other ones. If you hold your shift key down, press your right mouse button, go to tangent, you can click here on this circle. And then right click and pick enter to go back to the main command line. Now other people are, and I think this might be something they're showing you in your book, they might be showing you here to show the menu bar, which is kind of old school to me. It's this pull down menu. You can, as a choice, go to toolbars or tools, and then over to toolbars, over to AutoCAD, and then pick up here as a choice an additional toolbar that we used to use before the ribbon called Object Snap. There it is right there. I'm holding my left mouse button down on this left edge to move it around. If you're uncomfortable with starting the line command, holding your shift key down and pressing your right mouse button to get to tangent, you can here access the toolbar and keep that on your screen so that when you need those specific overrides, you can use here this tangent, snap to tangent. I'm going to go ahead and close out of that toolbar with that little X, and then I'm going to go ahead and close here or hide the menu bar. Okay, now we're ready to trim. If you start the trim command, which is in the modify panel, you can press enter to accept everything as a cutting edge. Or you can use the trim command by selecting cutting edges and entering them, and then selecting what you want to cut back to those cutting edges. I think if you start the trim command and you press enter, if you looked in your command line, it said select all. You're accessing the part here when you start the trim command to select everything as a cutting edge. I'm going to go ahead and press enter. When everything is a cutting edge, when you click on a piece of your object, it will trim back to the first object that it intersects. And now you have your slot created. I'll use the escape key to get rid of those. As an extended portion of this assignment, we can either create a new layer and make it a center line layer, or we can select here the object, go to properties, and change our layer here to something else. We'd have to load the center line layer. We'll have to also change our LT scale. So there's a lot of different ways of changing properties. I would not suggest using here properties for changing color. I would stick with the layer colors, but once in a while changing here to center line, depending on the size of the file and who you're working with. Some companies might have a completely different layer called center lines that has the center line type as part of it. But what we did was we selected the object, went to properties, went to here, the bilayer line type, and now we're going to click on other. If we pick the load button, we can scroll down to center, highlight it, pick OK, and that loads it so that we can pick OK. Click on the line, go back, and now it's in our list. We can click on center. Now notice here that you can't really see it as center. We had to increase our dimensions, so we have to increase also our line type scale. One quick way of doing that is to type in LT scale, all one word, LT scale, and enter. So line type scale is 1. If we use the same number that we use for our dimensions, 25.4, and enter, you can start to see here the line type of center line. But if you want to tweak this a little bit, you can go back to LT scale and make that a little bit smaller. Maybe 15. Companies do have standards that are in place for the different scale factors. I think 15 is good, right? Now we can select this line and do the same thing by turning it into here a line type of center. One of my favorite tools is under here clipboard, and it's called Match Properties. If you don't want to go through the bother of matching a property of text or dimensions or line types, you can click on Match Properties, select the original object, and then click on the new one, and it'll automatically change. Well, because it's not long enough, you won't see the dash, but we'll change that. One way of increasing the length of this line is to select it, and then just rest your pointer over the end of the line and go to lengthen. If you go to lengthen, you see how it's kind of lengthening it dynamically. You can pull your mouse up, and I know it doesn't show that this line goes beyond the notch, but I think it's okay to put it there. And we'll be able to see our center line. If we go to the Annotate tab, you'll see that there is an entire panel for dimensions. If you click on the word dimensions, you'll get more within that panel. And nested here is the center mark tool that we can use. Now the scale here might not be exactly right, so let's go ahead and select it and check it out. Click on here, and now what we're using here is the center mark that only gives you 2 lines. So I'm going to go up here and do an undo. You can type in U and enter also to undo those 2 lines that I drew. Type in D and enter, pick the modify button, and over here in the symbols and arrows tab, we can click on line. You see how in the preview it shows us the lines and the little center mark. 0.09 is probably too small, but let's go and check it out. We'll pick OK and close and go back to here, center mark, and click on the circle. Oh, it looks okay. Probably could go smaller, but notice that each one of these lines is a separate line. So this is one of the few settings that is not linked back to the dimension styles. I'd have to erase all of this to change it. So D, enter, modify, symbols and arrows. I'm probably going to make this a little bit smaller, like maybe 0.05. And place it on this other one and see what happens. A little bit better. I'll go ahead and cross over these and erase them. Select them. You can right click and pick erase. And now I can go up to the center mark that I changed to 0.05. 0.05, I should say. Go to dimension, pick center mark, select this circle, and you've got your center marks. When we're looking at dimensions, we can use the aligned dimension to create here this 81 that goes from the end of this line, and be careful here with all these little lines. We want to get right on the end of that line, pull your mouse over and click. And right away you can see we've got all this precision that we need to change. We can type in D and enter, pick the modify button, go to the primary units tab and change your precision here to round up to 0. Pick OK and close, and there's your 81. We now have a dimension that could be linear. It looks like it's from here to here, 73. Okay, and 24. Linear here to here. Yep. All right, and we can go to here dimensions and pick up diameter. Diameter, select the circle, pull your mouse down, and I'm just going to go ahead. Well, it does show you here. Go ahead and click here. Don't worry about that extension. That's a nested option. That's also in the Dimension Style dialog box. Here we'll go to diameter and select this circle. I think that coming across this way gets a little too messy, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull it over here. We have another one, I believe, over here. Yep. So we can go to diameter. Well, it's already the top icon. And select this. I think I'm going to put it over here. Yeah, it's getting a little messy over there. And then if you need to add text, you can double click on the text and then click. It's actually multi-line text here, but if you double click on the text and then get that blinking cursor in front of it, you can type in 2 space X space to add 2 times, like 2 circles that are diameter 19. Click in space and you've got that dimension. Okay, so what we did was we placed the center mark, and then when we placed this diameter dimension, it also placed a center mark. So we have 2 center marks in this drawing. So we didn't need to here. I just want to show you this. See, we didn't need to put the center mark in there because it would already be created when we placed here this diameter. Because we need a line for this 45-degree angle, you can either just draw a line and then use that line for the 45, because this one is all one piece. It's not going to let you, it's a dimension, it's not going to let you select it. Or you can erase this diameter or don't use it first. And now I can go back to angular and select here these 2 lines. See how I need a line in order to get that 45 degrees in there. I'm going to go ahead and put 45 here. It's because of the scale of the text that it's wanting to push out. So I need room. I can go ahead and put it there, and let's see what happens when we put this 30 degrees here. If it gets too crowded, yeah, it's going to throw it outside. If you want it to be exact, we have to go back and change the scale of our text. We can go back here and put diameter in, again, the diameter of 17. Now if we want to change the scale, we can just go back to D and enter and pick modify. Go to the fit tab and change this 25.4 to something a little bit smaller. Right, so I made it smaller. I made it 15. And now it seems to fit. I can select here this 45-degree dimension and move it in a little bit more even just by using these blue grips. And if I'd like, I can move this 30 degrees out a little more. So let's go ahead and put dimensions on it so that we can have another drawing for our portfolio. Okay, there's an extra center mark here that's created. It's not on this one because of this dimension. One way to remove that center mark would be to select here this dimension, right click and pick properties. If you look at this properties palette, it basically has the same categories as the tabs in the Dimension Style dialog box. When we typed in D and enter and picked modify, as I click on these little arrows in the gray strips, you can see that we have kind of the same tabs. So what we can do here is look for the arrows and lines and arrows section, and then look for center mark, and it still has that line, so we can drop this list down and pick none. By doing that, it turns off the center mark for just that one dimension. But if you notice, it will keep the center mark for the other dimensions. So maybe at this point we can select these other two and go to center mark and pick none, so that the original center mark will show up. You can close out of that dialog box, and now it should look similar to the angle bracket PDF file. Let's take a look. We should finish up this detail by using the aligned option of dimensions to dimension this detail so that for your portfolio, as you interview and use these assignments, you can show that these lines are at specific dimensions. You can create a new layer by using the Layers panel. Go to Layer Property, pick the new layer icon, the sheet of paper with the sun above it, type in Objects. I'm going to open up this dialog box a little bit. You'll see that there's a column here called Color. For the Objects layer, you can click on White and make that a different color. I'll go ahead and use red. In this strip of colors, it's color number 1. We can pick OK. And you can close out of the layer dialog box. The layers will be in this drop down here just above layers. The depth points layer is automatically created by AutoCAD the first time that you place a dimension. But now what we really want to do is select here all of our actual objects, the lines that we drew, and the slot and the 2 circles, and then drop this layer list down and pick the word Objects. Use your Escape key to get rid of the grips, and you'll see that your objects are red compared to your dimensions that are white. Save the file and submit it online for the angle bracket detail.